Today's a special episode, guys. It's not just about making money in this industry. It's also about giving back. And one of my biggest passions, even though I've never served in the military, is giving back to those who have. Because the way I see it is I sleep good at night because those boys are risking their lives. And I couldn't be more grateful. So I wanted to partner with an amazing organization. I partnered with the Veteran Housing Alliance.
Yeah, the Veteran Housing Alliance, VHA, yes.
I partnered with the Veteran Housing Alliance. And here I got one of the executive board members, Mr. Ruben. Mr. Ruben, what's your last name?
Hernandez, Ruben Hernandez.
Mr. Ruben Hernandez,
yes.
Welcome.
My pleasure, yeah. Good
Awesome.
to be here.
Thanks,
Good to be
brother.
here. Pleasure.
Man, so I just learned you're a broker owner as well.
I do. I own EGA Homes, Eagle Globe and Anchor Homes. It's obviously a certified veteran-owned outfit. We're based in Riverside with offices in Corona and Arizona.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love that. What was, so you're in the military?
I spent several years in the Marine Corps, several deployments.
Okay, how long did you do?
I did a total of 8 years in the Marine Corps. I was in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. You know, the first Gulf, some people term it as the first Gulf. Yeah, obviously supported Panama operations in '89 as well.
Okay.
And then eventually got out in the mid-90s.
Okay, awesome. What was the transition like from the military to civilian life?
Yeah, the transition is always tough. You know, back in we call it the era or generation as time moves on. We didn't have a lot of the social media. We didn't have a lot of the apps. We didn't have a lot of the nonprofits that helped mitigate our transition. So at that time, even being a single man at that time, it was very difficult to transition back. Having gone from, 3 square meals a day, living in the barracks, everything is pretty much squared away for us. Having to come out and figure everything out on our own was very difficult,
Right.
So I made the transition, started, went to college, started college,
Okay.
and then obviously got a job.
So you go to college. Where'd you go to university?
So I went to UC Riverside. I did my undergrad.
Okay.
I started at Riverside Community College, the Tigers.
GI Bill?
I did the GI Bill, which at that time was only $310 a month, just so you know. Now it's enough to live off of, for the most part, I should say. So I'm happy that the younger veterans have more money. But at that time, $310 was all I had for 3 years, and then had to figure things out for my last year of undergrad and couple years of graduate school when I did my MBA.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got your MBA from where?
From UC Riverside as well, in the Highlanders.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I went from RCC first 2 years.
Okay.
I transitioned to UC Riverside, the Highlanders, for my undergrad, and then just transitioned straight into my MBA. Did a couple of internships in Washington, D.C. For the Vice President of the United States at that time. And set up a lot of contacts out in D.C. and channeled everything into real estate as an investor and as a broker owner.
So when you go from your MBA, you go work in DC.
Yeah.
And then at that point you say, I'm going to go entrepreneurial and start my own real estate.
No, there was a few phases in between, a few struggles in between that. Yeah. So no, I in between my undergrad and getting into graduate school, I did the internships that I was talking about. I delivered a commencement address at my graduation for UC Riverside, which was awesome.
Wow.
It was awesome, yeah. And then got to develop a lot of contacts. But no, I did my MBA, and then coming out of graduate school, I worked for General Electric, which at that time was a Fortune 2 company. I really liked Jack Welch's leadership at that time. He was pro-military, very aggressive, used a lot of military metaphors like, we need to win the market share battle, we need to kill the enemy. He's just a lot of things that I could understand, being a Marine. And so it was an easy transition for me to go from military mindset, graduate school, and then into General Electric. And then from there, I got promoted, segued into the pharmaceutical industry for Merck Pharmaceuticals. I think at that time was a Fortune 60 company. And again, more contacts, more professional development, and all that. And then after that, wanted to invest in real estate and provide veteran housing, which was the genesis for getting into real estate over 20 years ago now.
Wow, that's
time
awesome.
Flies, man.
Never look back.
Never look back. Mission, mission, mission. Anybody who knows about the Marine Corps understands the mission is first. And so it's always been about mission accomplishment, and obviously troop welfare is what we call troop welfare, which is making sure we take care of the troops throughout the process.
Oh, I love that.
Awesome.
How has your engagement with the Veteran Housing Alliance? Well, I guess let's just talk a little bit about your organization and what it does and who they reach out to and how they help.
Sure, yeah. So the VHA, the Veteran Housing Alliance, is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. We're on our 8th year, 7th Golf Classic, if you will, where we raise funds. 100% volunteer. All the proceeds go to help veterans realize the dream of homeownership, to buy their first house.
Yep.
And then recently, the city of Corona reached out and asked if we would help mitigate their issue with homeless veterans as well. So now we added the homeless veteran permanent housing component to the Veteran Housing Alliance as well.
That's incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a really good mission.
And elaborate a little bit on the golf tournament, because we just decided we're going to be one of your main sponsors.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Like I said, it's everybody's kind of metaphorically speaking, everybody picks up a rifle and fights and tries to win this mission, win the war. And the war obviously is to eradicate veteran suicides through homeownership, and also to help provide permanent housing. But you are a sponsor this year. We certainly appreciate that. Like I said, it's all volunteer. It's, leaders like you that step up to the plate and say, look, I believe in your mission and I want to be a part of that. And so the community has stepped up, both with their time, obviously, which is probably the most important resource is time, but also, their donations, their volunteerism. Anything that's philanthropic is something that we're all about. And it goes back to the Marine Corps mindset of Semper Fidelis, as never leaving a Marine behind, in this case, never leaving any veterans behind. And then we have leaders like yourself that stepped up and said, look, I want to be a part of that. I believe in your mission and I want to pick up a rifle and serve. And so that's kind of how we see things now. And we've made a huge impact, in the community, and we're going to continue on with that.
Can you give a story of somebody that stands out? I'm sure you have, hundreds, maybe thousands of people who you've served, but give us one that just, hits your heart.
Absolutely. As a leader in the private sector, in the public sector, or in the military?
I'll player's choice. So let's start with something that your organization has done to really impact it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So the Veteran Housing Alliance, what we've done is we've literally taken a veteran who was homeless, interface with the county, interface with U.S. Vets, where they provide housing as well. Went through workforce development, mental health. There's many players involved in this process. Took the veteran, Mr. Hibden, was homeless, got him into housing, and then workforce development, got him back on his feet, and eventually he was able to purchase his first home.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so it was pretty amazing to go from that state of affairs where you are looking at and wondering where you're going to live, to actually getting back into the workforce, getting mental health that you need, and then eventually being able to become a homeowner and buy his first house was pretty amazing.
Man, I love that.
Yeah.
We got a guy right now. I had him come into the office last week, and he's a veteran. He's living at March Air Force Base, and they're homeless.
That's U.S. Vets.
Okay. Yeah, so he's living there, and I started talking to him, and I go, man, it's crazy. Like, you actually qualify for like a house.
Sure.
And, we ran his credit. We're gonna have to do credit repair for like 6 months to a year to get him.
Yeah.
But the way he was talking about, hey, I want to house homeless people inside my house. So like, I want to get this house so I can rent out rooms to homeless veterans, and I want to do this, I want to do that. And I was like, no one would expect or give you the time of day to start to let you tell the story of like, hey, this is actually what I'm trying to do. And like,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of us don't really know. I mean, in my case, coming back from combat theaters of operation back to the civilian sector is very difficult. The first thing I want to do is secure housing, and obviously food, all the essentials.
Yeah.
Home ownership, if it wasn't for organizations like yours that actually educate us on the fact that ask the question on like, have you ever considered owning a home? Yeah. A lot of us probably would never own a home. And that was kind of the genesis for me becoming a homeowner and wanting to invest, is because I had such a good experience with the broker that I worked with initially, who said, hey, you ever used your VA loan? And I said, you know what, I heard something about it, but fill me in, like what do I need to know? And then, through education and filling information gaps, I realized I could buy a house, and that's what prompted me to buy my first house.
Oh, I love that.
Awesome.
These are 3 times.
Yeah, well, keep doing it. Again, there's so many.
House hiking that way.
Exactly. And there's so many misnomers and misconceptions out there that, we don't know that when we do find somebody with integrity, an organization that does educate us and let us know and runs our free analysis to determine whether or not we have the FICOs and, work history, et cetera, to become a homeowner. That's all critical information for us, because it does make our quality of life a lot better.
Yeah, I love that. How are you reaching out to people? Like, what is your strategy right now to?
Right now we're doing educational seminars at least once a month.
Okay.
We do that on the VHA side now as well, through our events, the golf tournament, as I mentioned, casino night. We have one of our honorary board members as well that does educational seminars once a month on homeownership as well. So it's just an influx of information. We leverage social media. which is critical right now as well. A lot of folks spend time on social media. So right now, it's just an influx of information and education out there to really decipher whether or not that veteran can realize the dream of homeownership.
Are you teaching the courses on base or?
Oh, so yeah, we do. So right now we are doing it at our offices, the EGA Homes, Eagle Globe and Anchor Homes offices. We are securing venues, both on base and off base. Okay. We have a lot of supporters that even own pubs and things of that sort, where we can do an educational seminar after hours, and it draws an audience. They're free events. And we encourage our partners like you to do it in tandem with us as well, so we can capture a larger audience. But once we get the information out there, there are a lot of veterans out there that don't realize that they can own a home.
Oh, there's a ton. It's best,
huge.
It's the best loan on the market.
Well, so I mean, to that point, and again, as a broker owner of EGA Homes, we've always done education to VA even 20 plus years ago, but now it's even better. Now you have individuals like yourself, leaders like yourself, that are stepping up to the plate, saying, yeah, it's a great loan type. It's the safest loan type because you can't spend your down payment. We have no down payment.
Yeah, nothing.
So we can't compromise the loan in that degree. But also too is the fact that back when it was an REO market, when it was a foreclosure market, we really had difficulty competing against cash offers. Right. But now the VA loan and also FHA programs now allow us to compete more on an even playing field now that the market has shifted.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
So let's go into a hypothetical. You got a veteran on the phone. What is your first intent to say, hey, this is why you should use your VA benefits?
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't feel qualified if I hadn't done it myself. So first off, I qualify that statement to say, look, I've been through the process personally. So there's some credibility there. My first question is, have you considered using your VA? What do you know about it? And a lot of times we'll get, well, I heard some things about it. And I said, that's funny. That's the same vernacular I used 20 plus years ago when I knew just a little bit about it. And so once we find out kind of where they're at on that pendulum, we fill information gaps and then do a free analysis as you do and determine whether or not they qualify to utilize that VA based on what they're comfortable paying on a monthly basis and based on what they qualify for.
Yeah, I love that.
So it starts with a couple of questions, honestly. It creates a conversation, and from a conversation, you provide information, and then you either, they can either purchase or they can't. And if they can't, then we put them on a free credit repair program if it's a credit repair issue, right? If it's an issue of having a job, then we try to find them a job as well.
So elaborate on the free credit repair. Where are you doing that?
Yeah, so we have a vendor that provides free credit repair as well.
For vets?
For veterans, specifically. Okay. A lot of times our lending partners like yourself will do it as well, so we'll get some feedback from you all. We need to really identify what the key issue is that's preventing the veteran from realizing homeownership. And once we identify that, then we can chip away at that issue.
Yeah. It's the VA loan gives you an amazing ability to create a journey for them and say, hey, here are your milestones that you need to hit over the next 6 months, a year, really to try to get into it.
Absolutely. And again, I think fundamentally we all realize the importance of having, sustainable, safe housing. It's just a matter of getting the information we need for us to pull the trigger.
Oh, I love that. Let's talk about your journey in real estate a little bit.
Sure.
Kind of shift the dynamic. Let's talk about you going out into the marketplace for the first time. What was that feeling like?
Yeah, no. So everything initially is anything that's unknown, I think, can be scary. I think fear is kind of the biggest thing that prevents people from making, real estate or any decision, but certainly real estate decisions, because we simply don't know about it. So again, the broker that I had worked with was amazing. He took his time, filled me in. I had a million questions, and he answered them all. And so that actually prompted me to not only get my real estate license initially. Well, first I did an internship with him because I wanted to learn more from him. Yeah. And then I eventually got my real estate license to help other veterans purchase homes and also to invest. And then those two facets of those efforts took on lives of their own, which led to EGA Homes eventually, and also led to my investment company that focuses on real estate investments.
So you've been talking a few times about this investment company.
Yeah.
What is it tailored towards, and how did you start it? What was the path like to really get this going, and where is it at now? Yeah.
So the pathway initially was getting into the mix, kind of making sure we understand our financing options, because at that time there weren't a lot of resources. So, we looked at hard money resources, we looked at conventional financing as well. So we were able to secure financing. We bought a very small place in the high desert initially, flipped that made more money than I ever thought was possible. Having come from the Marine Corps, where we don't make a lot of money initially, even in combat theaters of operation. And then once I realized, that, the returns and the journey, and understood more about it, I just started to continue to invest, and eventually developed a pretty sizable portfolio, and then got to the point where I shared all those best practices with everybody. So anybody, whether you're at my firm or just want to get information on investing, we provide free information through the educational platform that I mentioned to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. You get a first-time investor, a real estate agent calls you and say, hey, I want to start flipping, or someone wants to say, hey, I got 50 grand, I want to start flipping. What is their course of action to get started in that?
Yeah, so first off, we clarify misconceptions that are out there, because a lot of times they'll look at a YouTube video and say, well, I understand I can be a multi-million-dollar investor with no money. Right? There has to be some resources, just so you know. So we clarify those misconceptions. Then we identify how many resources they have. Okay, so what do you have to work with to become an investor? What areas you're looking at, what type of investment are you looking at? A flip, which certain markets provide those opportunities and certain markets don't. Or are you doing a lot of purchase and holds, where you want to generate revenue from your rental income? And so, which is the majority of what I do. I've done both, but I do a lot of hold, where I generate revenue on a monthly basis, through our property managers and things like that. So once we identify where their mindset is, what resources they have, then we tailor a path that makes it most feasible. And as you mentioned earlier, if there's some obstacles that need to be overcome, then we help mitigate those issues as well.
So one of the big things is, when I get a veteran, I try to open up their vision, right? A lot of the active duty guys that get to me, and they're like, oh, I want to use my BAH specifically for my mortgage, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then they want a $700,000 house, and I'm like, well, let's dial it back.
Correct, exactly, yeah, exactly.
Let me teach you about how you can use your VA loan to become an investor.
Absolutely.
And so it's hey, we're gonna get started with this house. We're gonna go zero down. I'm gonna get you to one of my agents. I'm gonna pitch in on your closing costs. I'm gonna have them pitch in on your closing costs.
Yep.
If we can't get it from the seller, maybe we get you a house with $2-3 grand out of pocket.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I follow them through this journey, and it's like, now I've been in this long enough where I'm on step 2 of making my vets investors, where they get the call from me, and it's like, hey, we got 20% in equity. It's time to flip this to a conventional loan, and I'm gonna free up your VA loan, and now we're gonna go get a step-up house. So your family's gonna get to move from this $400,000 condo that's now worth $550.
There you go.
And now you're gonna go get $700, which initially is what you wanted. And hey, we're gonna do this one more time, and that's gonna be your second investment property. We're gonna go get $1 million. I still haven't had a veteran go to the third step.
I love that. You will.
Yeah, but I will.
You will. You will.
I will.
Yeah, you will. Because again, we're mission minded. Once you give us a mission, metaphorically speaking, you say, we need to take that hill. We're going to take the hill.
It's just time.
It's just a matter of time.
It's just time. A decade in this.
The one mistake I made that I wish I'd done is I tried to invest while I was on active duty.
Okay.
And I just didn't, because there was several deployments, especially in the Marine Corps, we deploy very often. And so I tried to do it. I think I might have even gone through some of the initial steps. I can't remember really, but it just didn't pan out for one reason or another. But I tell all my brothers and sisters that are serving right now, regardless of where your duty station is, let's get you a house there. And then if when you PCS, or if you get orders to a different duty station, then we can always look at property management in a way for you to continue to generate cash flow through your rental income, and also equity. It's the equity position. So what you said about leveraging is huge. Yeah. I mean, I think if I had to identify one of the most important words in real estate, it's leverage.
Oh, 100%.
And so you're showing veterans how to leverage, like you said, that $400,000 or $500,000 condo. Now we're going to leverage that equity. Let's do a step up. We'll leverage that as well. What I was alluding to when I first started to invest was leveraging. I took I believe it was somewhere around $100,000 I made on that first investment, which to me was a lot of money at that time. And I literally started buying multiple properties. Yeah. And then of course, having grown up playing Monopoly like a lot of us did, it just became a matter of, playing Monopoly. Yeah. It's Baltic to, Mediterranean to Baltic, Baltic to Oriental. And I literally know every Monopoly.
Are you at Broadway?
100%. We're at Broadway. Now we are. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to front. I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, Broadway it is what it is. But I love working with veterans and investors that are just starting out, because they don't realize just the overall potential that exists when you put the right mindset and you have the right partner, like you said, showing them how to leverage and continue to leverage over and over to get to where you want to be. Residential, commercial. I also promote commercial as well. But overall, real estate is just a vehicle, really, to help us achieve a better quality of life.
Well, I love that. I mean, you're successful. Now, a lot of a lot of veterans don't get to follow the path that you went on to get to this point. What do you think made you different?
I think honestly, mindset. You have to burn the ships. I hate to use a popular slogan,
Cortez.
but you got to burn those ships. Honestly, and I tell my agents, overall between our trainees, our realtors and staff, we're just shy of 100 now, so we're growing pretty quickly. And again, but I think it's all predicated on the proper mindset. Going in and saying there's no plan B. I'm going to make this work. Yeah. Now, if nobody else had ever gone to the moon, right? You're the first person doing it. I see that might be a little bit of a concern. However, there's still a lot of business being had right now. So if one person can do it, you can do it as well. But that's all based on mindset, saying, you know what, no excuse mentality, which is something that we understand in the military. That's from day one, is getting that mission done. If you make it your mission and you come with the right mindset, anything can be accomplished. But again, it is going to take the right partners, as I mentioned, which is exciting about what you're talking about in terms of educating your veterans on the VA, because that's important.
Yeah, it's huge. Man.
Back in the day, you used to have to pay for information. A lot of the information is free now.
Yeah.
The problem now, though, is you have to decipher between what is reality, like people that say you don't need any money to be a successful investor, which is a misnomer.
Well, I'm going to challenge you.
Yeah, challenge. Yeah, please.
With that
please
VA loan, it really is no money.
Well, yeah, you do, but you still have closing costs.
Time.
You still have closing costs.
Negotiate it.
You can negotiate closing costs, but that only applies if there's more of a buyer's market or a balanced market. When the index is at 93, which the buyer's index was at 93, meaning it was a significant seller's market, how many times did you get help with closing costs?
Depends, because I was stacking a lot of closing costs.
You can, but then you have an appraisal issue.
Depends, but then we're really good at the reconsideration of values.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's look at that for a second, because I love this challenge. I love this. And again, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's more scarce.
Yeah.
Okay, because if it's a seller's market, sellers have leverage.
And let me just throw this in there.
Please.
This is another wrench. I'm a branch manager, so I set the margin. I set the street rate.
Okay.
So I have a full P&L. You talk to a loan officer, they can't do what I'm going to say right now.
There you go. It's competitive advantage.
I can drop 10 grand right now.
Yeah.
So if I'm issuing a 6.25 rate, right, with a $5,000 cost, that's the street price. That could be the street price for my loan officers. But if I'm doing the deal and I got to pay commission, and I got an appraisal issue that's 10 grand,
there you go.
I'll take the hit.
Right, you'll take the hits, right? So again, you have a competitive advantage based on your position, which I love.
Strategy.
So check this out. This is real. Yeah, I love that. So this is real talk right here. Okay, this is real talk. If let's just say hypothetically, it's a $500,000 purchase. Yeah. And you stack it to 510 to offset closing costs. Fundamentally, it has happened, because we've seen it happen many, many times. The seller will go back to their agent and say, well, wait a minute. If the house appraised at 510, why didn't you price it at 510? So it does create, in some instances, it does create an issue because if it's worth 510, then the realtor, in theory, the realtor should have priced it at 510.
Well, I haven't had that yet.
You haven't had it? I have had it yet. I've been on both sides.
When the seller, because we don't deal with the listing side, right?
Yeah, correct.
But we do a lot of prep work. So when we were in the seller's market, I was really training a lot of my agents and saying, and dude, I get on the phone, like I've bypassed agents negotiating for me. They just, no offense to any of my homies out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I just bypass it. I get on the phone with the listing agent and say, let's strike a deal now, because I don't want to go back and forth.
Correct.
And I'm opening 2 escrows right now. One of them's $15,000 in seller credit. But that was the strategy, going in and saying, hey, I'm going to need this for closing.
Yeah.
And so even if we have an appraisal issue, we're going to have to come down to the appraised value, and I need to keep my closing costs, because we're not. Sure. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
So that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense in this market. Exactly. That's what
right now I can do that. I got a property in Vegas that came in 15 G's low, but I got 15 G's in credit. But I did all this up front, so it was like, okay, it's an easy phone call.
So what I love about what you're saying is you measure twice and cut once. I love that. Yeah. So again, and the other thing you said is it's market specific, because you're correct, right? So for the last 6 of the last 8 months, price points have been coming down. We hadn't seen that for a very, very long time.
We're in a little bit of a rebound now.
We're a little bit of a rebound, right? Because we are 100%, because it's all based on demand, right? Because demand drives the market. So, but back prior to the 2008 crash, the 2008 crash, where prices were just growing. I mean, I would invest in a property in, let's say, 2004, and by 2006, I flipped it and made $200,000. That's not a normal market. No. Because the market was going, and obviously it ended up crashing. So when a market, is in a growth pattern, right, then we have more of an opportunity to stack our closing costs, like as you mentioned, right? But when the market is coming down, right, and you're starting to shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market, the dynamic changes, and so too does the strategy that you need to employ change. So it sounds like you've been able to kind of strike a balance between those two, which is huge. Not everybody can do that. So again, if you need that kind of help and somebody can help you navigate through those markets, it's huge. But it is market specific. Yeah.
But then you just adjust and you adjust your strategy.
Absolutely.
And it's fine.
Well, you burn the ships.
I think if you go up front with all the prep work done, then it makes it all easy.
100%. But you realize you're saying you burnt the ships. You're saying I'm going to find a way. I'm going to strategize. I'm going to educate. I'm going to educate myself so I can educate other people, right? And then I'm going to go full throttle.
I love the burning of the ships. Not a lot of people use that example.
You got to have it.
I don't have any part-timers.
Yeah, good.
I don't do part-time, and I don't do work from home.
Love that.
You're in the office. I have my processor working from home in Big Bear. That's an exception because she earned it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But if you're in my sales staff, there ain't no working from home.
She earned it, and she might be snowed in right now, too.
She's snowed in. She also I'm also not having to drive for 3 hours. I'd argue she's the best processor in the industry.
I love that. Yeah,
she's definitely the best processor in my region. But you got to, if you're going to be successful in this industry, there's no part-timers.
There's no plan B.
12-hour days and you work.
And honestly, granted, again, this will be my third market shift, right? So granted, there is always a niche. You have to understand it's about your positioning, and you mentioned leverage earlier. Yeah. So I don't want to say that we're not concerned about the new market corrections. I actually see opportunity in this now transition, if you will, if you want to call it transition. I see opportunity, but again, it depends on how you're positioned. If you were, and I'm just going to speak, 100%, keep it on the real. If you were, buying the boats and you were buying the RVs and the Can-Ams, or if you're a Polaris person in Polaris, you got to make a distinction now. It's like iPhone and Galaxy, right? People compete. But if you were doing those things during that time when people were getting PPP money and all this stuff, those were not good decisions. That's what happened prior to the 08 crash that got a lot of people in trouble. If, however, you were leveraging, to use your term, that money to buy investment properties and things like that, you're pretty well positioned. Because the rental market is still still really strong.
Yeah, it's all about cash flow.
100%.
Right, that doesn't matter. It's all about cash flow.
Absolutely.
Rich dad, poor dad.
Yeah.
Before we end here, I want to know what your take is on all this crazy banking crisis.
I think it was predictable. Honestly, again, this is not the first time it's happened. It happens cyclically over time. If you look at throughout history, I mean, going back to the Great Depression in '29, if you study that, which I encourage everybody to do because history repeats itself, and it literally has repeated itself over and over. But it was predictable. Obviously, the banks were heavy on venture capitalists and providing monies that when the economy took a hit, so too did their opportunity to succeed, and they have to pay out. Wasn't super excited to hear that a lot of times some of the executives would take their payouts and then kind of leave depositors hanging. I didn't like that, but that again has happened throughout history. So as consumers, as investors, or just general consumers, we really have to continue to educate ourselves, which is why I love what you're doing with your organization, your company. We have to really stay on top of things to understand not only where we're at, where we're headed, but how to make sure that we navigate those as most efficiently as possible. And so it was predictable, to answer your question.
So rather than going in generic terms as far as like how to position yourself, give me your top 3 ways that you positioned yourself to be ready for this market, and what someone who didn't prepare can do today.
Absolutely. So number one is, I educate my real estate agents as well that work at the firm, is pay off high interest debt, right? You try to be as unencumbered as possible. There's good or decent debt, obviously. Home ownership debt, where you can write off some of that helps mitigate your tax liability is good. Excuse me, is good. Credit cards that are charging you 21% or 16% or something insane, right? Really need to get out of that as quickly as possible. So take those savings, and then I do what's called create buckets. So I'll take the savings that you normally would pay some of the high interest credit card companies, and I start to create investment buckets. So each investment then, when you get your tax returns, goes back into paying off that loan faster than you normally would if you just paid it, did the minimum payments for 30 years, let's just say, in theory. So it would be create the buckets, pay off your high interest debt, and it would be to also continually look for opportunities on a nonstop basis, because there are opportunities out there. The rental market, as we mentioned, is still very, very high, as many of you know that are renting. Getting into home ownership, I definitely would talk to somebody like yourself and say, look, I don't know if I can buy or not, but I would take an active approach to seeing if you qualify to get into the game. I always tell folks through my education, the middle class is shrinking, and I feel like at some point it might even go away in this country. unfortunately, but it's definitely been shrinking. I've been saying this for literally 8 years, 8 to 10 years, because I follow the market, different markets, and I also educate myself and others on the fact that you need to really be as unencumbered as possible with bad debt, and really need to invest as many times as possible to help get you that better quality of life that I alluded to a few minutes ago.
I love that, man.
It's real talk.
Yeah. Hey.
It's real talk. And again, this is the years of making mistakes and not doing things right.
I dropped 30 racks this morning on credit card debt.
30 racks. Okay.
30 racks.
Dude, that's boom. That's awesome.
You know what? This is enough.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, interest, the bad interest is straight profit to the bank.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm a big proponent of that, man. Like, let's pay off all the high interest debt.
Absolutely.
Take lines of credit on your house if you have to pay off those credit cards.
Sure.
Because it's brutal out there.
Well, I mean, it's cost benefit analysis, right? It's what could you do with that money? And now that we see eggs at $9, $12, depending on where you shop, a dozen, some of us went and got chickens. I mean, you have to be innovative. During the time, that would probably be the fourth thing, if not even, higher on the pecking order, would be innovative right now. There are solutions to many of the problems that we're seeing right now. And rather than go into a little bit of a hiding, position, let's get more into a proactive position, kind of throttle down a little bit. You said power through earlier. You said you used a term that I loved, but it's really time to ramp up, double down. That's what you said. Yeah. It's time to double down, really, and find those opportunities, the opportunities that are out there, because they are out there. But if we're going to take more of a, kind of a reluctant or scared position, I don't think that's the approach right now to take.
Oh, no. This is the time to go after, because everyone's scared.
100%. Yeah. Don't, just so you know, we're all in the same ship. Right? Some are bailing out, some are jumping on life rafts, and I get it because it's scary. Yeah. But right now we're throttling up. We're patching the holes, if you will, if we want to use that metaphor. We're patching the holes, and we're finding opportunities that exist. That we're looking at secondary markets right now that are going down. We're investing out of state right now. Yep. There's still a lot of opportunity. You could acquire homes at $70,000.
I'm flying to Georgia.
There you go.
I'll start flipping out there.
There you go. I mean, I'm telling you, nationwide. So the thing that if you have to look at the bright side of all the craziness that's going on, is the fact that we've always kind of sharpened our blade. By which I mean we've always worked at getting better and better at our trade, so that we can be more valuable to others. So that's probably the fifth advice I would give. But it's making us look at areas that we probably wouldn't have looked at before. Going to Oklahoma, in my case, or Kansas. Probably wasn't in my wheelhouse until California became so expensive and tightened up so much. So now it's given me the opportunity to get even better and sharpen my blade even more. And there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I'm finding in other states, Florida included.
Yeah. I love that, brother. Well, hey, man.
Yeah,
this was an awesome ton of value.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Let's get some reels done.
Let's go.
All right, brother.
Love it. Let's do it.